Due to a vampire outbreak from 10 years ago, the human race is on the brink of extinction. With less than 5% humans left, they are consistently being hunted down and farmed for blood by blood-sucking immortal vampires. Despite the condition, life in the cities goes on, with working and playing during the night becoming the new norm. The vampires have dominated the world and have made their lives comfortable with vampire-centered government law, and inventions such as daytime driving car modification, and even mixing blood in their night coffee to make it tastier. On the other hand, vampires who can't afford human blood are bound to deform into beast-like creatures. These creatures are hunted down by the police should they incite any blood-related crime to satisfy their hunger. The situation has turned a small portion of the vampires into human sympathizers. They fight for human rights by attempting to find a blood substitute for the vampires to feast on, and to overcome the hunger. One of them is Dr. Edward, a hematologist who works at the biggest human blood farm company in the world, Bromley Marks. Not only can't he stand the situation the humans are in, he is also aware of the blood supply shortage which bears no future, even for the vampires. And so, he is on a mission to find the blood substitute as a solution. One day, he is called to a classified meeting to study the effects of human blood deprivation on vampires. The deprived vampires deform physically from having elongated ears, to deform completely and become emotionless bat-like creatures called the subsiders. At the current rate, the vampire race will only last a month with the existing human blood supply. Seeing the condition, Mr. Bromley, the owner of the company Edward is working in, invites Edward to his chamber. Bromley was diagnosed with cancer 10 years ago and turned himself into a vampire to save himself and gained immortality. Despite his daughter rejecting him, he has become a proud vampire and even aims to be the most powerful vampire by manipulating the blood supply in the world, including the blood substitute. Bromley pushes Edward to experiment feeding the blood substitute to life vampires. The prototype has been successfully experimented on animal vampires, but is not quite ready for the real thing. As a result, the test subject suddenly vomits and enters an unstable state. The team manages to stop the symptoms with some medicine. However, the body rejects the blood substitute and it explodes, leaving another disappointment in Edward's eyes. On his way home, Edward suddenly crashes into another car which is driven by humans who are on the run. Hearing the police sirens from afar, he offers his help to hide them in his car, to which they reluctantly accept. Inside, one of the humans notice that Edward is working as a doctor for a blood farm company. After the police leave, the humans immediately leave with gratitude. At home, Edward's younger brother, Frankie, arrives to celebrate Edward's birthday. The idea is unwelcomed by Edward as Frankie was the one who turned him into a vampire, against his own will. Frankie brought 100% pure human blood as a gift, but Edward refuses to drink it and they get into an argument due to their different point of view. Edward believes that blood substitute is crucial to maintain the vampire's future, but Frankie is a proud vampire who hunts humans and only wants to drink pure human blood. As a result, they get into a fight and Frankie throws the bottle away. The blood stench immediately attracts a subsider who has turned completely. Frankie tries to fight it but is thrown towards the wall easily by the stronger creature. When Edward is about to be cornered, Frankie wakes up and both of them attempt to strike at the same time. However, the subsider jumps and hangs onto the ceiling. Frankie manages to slash and stab it several times before finally cutting its head off. The police finally come to investigate the scene and advise Edward to tighten the security, as the subsiders are becoming more common these days. They also manage to identify the subsider as the local gardener. To Edward's surprise, the gardener has been drinking his own blood to satisfy his hunger. This action stimulates his mutation to complete subsider in only 2 weeks. The day has come and Edward is sleeping. Suddenly, someone breaks into his house and wakes him up. Edward is surprised to see Audrey, one of the humans whom he has helped before. Audrey hints Edward of a cure for the vampires to turn back into humans. She hands out a map and immediately leaves when Edward is distracted by a noise. He then checks on the noise to find that Frankie has been hearing the discussion. Frankie asks Edward about it but he doesn't tell him. Meanwhile, as the world is in fear of blood recession, investors have been pulling their human stock from the blood farms, especially Bromley Marks. The situation endangers Mr. Bromley's position further, as the most powerful man who controls the blood supply in the world. He presses Edward to move forward with the blood substitute prototype. As a human sympathizer, Edward asks for Bromley's guarantee that the humans won't be farmed anymore once the blood substitute is complete. However, Bromley is a greedy man who wants to cater to all markets, including the rich vampires who are willing to pay extra for the real thing. This reply convinces Edward further that a cure is needed, so he sets out to meet Audrey. With his day-driving modified car, he drives to the outskirts where a mysterious man has been waiting. Edward goes out of his car and carefully walks outside under the sun. There, he meets Elvis, a cured vampire who is able to walk under the sun once more. Edward is amazed to feel Elvis' beating heart by his own hands. Unfortunately, the military have been following Edward and they take Audrey hostage. Edward realizes that it is Frankie, his proud vampire brother. Not only did Frankie follow Edward, but he also calls for backup to make things worse. Audrey catches Frankie off guard and she knocks him out with Elvis' help. They try to flee in Elvis' car, but the military takes it out before they get in. Cornered by rounds of the military tranquilizer darts, they flee in Edward's car and engage in a car chase. The military shoots real rounds this time and damages Edward's UV shield, making him unable to drive. They also take out the camera and Elvis is forced to take the wheel. With 3 armored cars on their tail, Elvis successfully shakes them off by driving through a rundown bridge. The 3 finally drive to the outskirts to hide and seek shelter. At night, Elvis stops at a water canal on the side of the road. He then explains that he used to be one of the first vampires to invent daylight driving car modifications, adding custom cameras and sun shields for fellow vampires in the past. He pridefully rode his car back then to top speed before realizing that he was hitting the fence. The impact threw him over the water while being burned by the sun. Luckily, the water saved him from the sunburn, and to his surprise, he is human once more. Seeing that this is a permanent cure for the current world's problem, Edward agrees to join hands and recreate the procedure safely. On the other hand, Bromley is missing his estranged daughter who has rejected him for turning himself to vampires. He is informed of Frankie's actions and calls him to his office. He orders Frankie to bring Edward back, and to look for his long-lost daughter too, as they may be connected with the human community. Night falls, and the 3 are still on their way to the shelter. Audrey notices that Edward hasn't been drinking human blood despite being a vampire. She forces Edward to drink her blood to make sure that Edward won't turn against the humans once they arrive, to which he forcefully complies. Later, they arrive at the shelter, the last human colony in the district. Every once in a while, the members set out to look for more people to gather, and they are setting out once more tonight with Jarvis as the leader. Inside, Edward is amazed by how many humans are present. In addition, Senator Turner, a vampire politician who is also a human sympathizer, has also joined the cause and actively helps the colony. Turner emphasizes the importance of the cure and says that it may be dangerous in the wrong hands. Meanwhile, Bromley is concerned by the dwindling human stock. The fear of subsider epidemic and blood price inflation have put all the population to restlessness and panic, and eventually leads to chaos everywhere. Back at the shelter, Edward is looking into Elvis' blood. He finds that vampires' blood must be burned within the body in order to be cured. The cured blood and the shock from the sunburn will also kickstart the heart, making them human again. However, it is imperative to extinguish the fire with water to stay alive. With these procedures in mind, Edward looks around to recreate it safely and stumbles upon a wine fermentation tank. He sees that the airtight tank and the extraction chute are perfect for the job, with some adjustment made. After some time, Jarvis has picked up a large group of humans and they are on their way to meet the colony. One of the new members is Ali, Bromley's long-lost daughter. During their conversation, their tire runs flat and they are ambushed by the military. A large group of vampires rain them with tranquilizer darts and pinch them from both sides. Ali tries to contact the base, but is knocked unconscious. Frankie taps the radio signal and locates the colony. Realizing that they have been found out, the colony flees to Senator Turner's cabin. However, Edward is determined to stay behind and continue his experiment. Hearing his response, Elvis and Audrey join him on their goal. At Bromley's office, Ali wakes up and is welcomed by her father. Knowing that their friends are being farmed, Ali stabs him and pushes him away. Unbeknownst to her, a soldier is behind her and knocks her out once more. Back to Edward, he volunteers to be the first experiment subject. With the sun to jumpstart his heart, and a wet blanket to cool his body, Edward is closely monitored to ensure his safety. The first trial ends swiftly but bears no result. With the military closing in, Edward is determined to undergo the procedure again despite the pain he is experiencing. This time, his heart is fired for a moment before resting once more. They run the procedure once more and Edward's heart is beating steadily and he feels alive again. His eye color turns back and he is slowly becoming human again. They finish just in time to hide from the military. After tending to his wound, Bromley motivates Frankie to capture more humans in order to sustain the vampire's prosperity. He also asks Frankie to bite Ali to turn her. He does it enthusiastically as he looks up to Bromley so much and then leaves Ali to succumb to the change. After some time, Bromley checks on his daughter who hasn't drunk her blood rations. To his surprise, Ali has been drinking her own blood, which will fasten the subsider mutation considerably, leaving her father to lament on his actions. Outside, the subsider epidemic is spreading fast. The military are ordered to capture and contain all of the subsiders on the streets. After the military have left, Edward goes out to feel the sun for the first time. The 3 then set out to the senator's cabin to gather with the colony. They find the members have been ambushed by the military, but are sucked dry. Even the vampire senator has been killed. As a last resort, Edward proposes to seek help from his former colleague, Chris. On the other hand, the military operations are a success. Along with it, The public opinion on subsiders changes and they see them as monsters. As a result, the captured subsiders are tied to chains and are to be executed under the sun. Frankie watches as Ali is dragged to meet her end. He feels remorse for what he has done to her, but can't do anything now. The public watches in disgust as the subsiders are burned down. After contacting Chris, Edward visits him to seek refuge. Chris can't believe that Edward is human again. Suddenly, a phone call comes in and Chris excuses himself. After some waiting, Audrey checks on him, but she is captured instead. Chris has been calling his office and the two are now being chased. They flee to an old shop and are almost attacked by a subsider. Fortunately, Frankie comes and rescues them. Frankie confesses that he turned Edward because he couldn't lose him, as Edward would have been hunted by the military instead if he didn't turn him. Trying to make amends, Frankie decides to help them save Audrey. However, he gives in to his hunger and bites Elvis. Edward holds Frankie at gunpoint, but stops upon realizing something mysterious is going on with Frankie. He decides to embark on his solo mission to save Audrey. At Bromley's office, Audrey is being bled dry. Edward comes in and asks Bromley to turn him into a vampire again, as he fears death now. In exchange, he will open up the cure procedure. However, Bromley declines the offer as his staff Chris has invented a stable blood substitute which will make him richer. Hearing this, Edward provokes Bromley by bringing up his daughter. In anger, Bromley bites him hard, but stops due to a shock. Turns out, Elvis is safe and Frankie is human again after drinking Elvis blood. And slowly, Bromley is turning back as he writhes in pain. Meanwhile, the military have arrived to capture the two. Edward ties Bromley to a chair and sends him downstairs to meet the hungry soldiers as bait. Despite the effort, they are still cornered by another group. Frankie comes in with a car and skillfully takes out the group one by one. However, a far bigger group comes and they smell Frankie's human blood. He sacrifices himself and lets the hungry soldiers feast on his body. The soldiers slowly turn back and are cured. This causes a chain reaction and the hungry soldiers now hunt on the cured ones, until only a few of them are left shocked and afraid of being hunted. Suddenly, Chris comes and kills the turned soldiers. When he is about to kill Edward, Elvis comes with a crossbow and saves them. Then, the three set their eyes on the sun and go out on a mission to cure the world. Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like and comment to help the channel out. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.